It was a week before Christmas in the small town of Leslie, England. The air was cold and frigid. The snow had been pouring heavily all evening. As the sky started to get dark, Mary started the fireplace and called her boys to warm up. They could hear the heavy gusts of wind blowing against the windows. Mary looked out. The snow covered nearly everything outside. She wondered where Roger was. How was he going to return home in this awful weather? As the firewood crackled on, she sat down by the fireplace when she suddenly heard a knock on the door. Expecting her husband, she rushed to open, but was surprised to see it wasn't him. There stood a man in a long coat, a briefcase in his hands, trembling in the cold. "Are you Mary Campbell?" he asked in a shaky voice. "Yes, but I'm sorry I couldn't recognize you. I'm Dr. Harold Wilson. I've come all the way here from Birdford in search for you." As the freezing winds rushed into the house, Mary ushered the doctor in. "Please, come in. The snowstorm has been quite rough all day." She escorted the doctor towards the fireplace, where he sat down trying to get warm. It seemed the man had been out in the storm for a long time. Mary hurried into her kitchen and brought out some soup she had made for their dinner. "This will help you warm up." "Thank you." As Dr. Wilson had his soup, Mary was about to ask what brought him here. But then there was another sudden knock on the door. "I'll be right back." Mary opened the door to see Roger was finally back. She quickly allowed him in and took his jacket. Roger looked exhausted. "The weather has been horrible today, and these winds, not a single soul is out. The entire market had been nearly empty. I made only a few sales today." "You should have returned earlier." "I closed the shop nearly an hour ago, but it took so long to come home in the snow." As Roger took off his shoes, he noticed a man sitting by the fireplace. "Who is he?" "Dr. Harold Wilson. I don't know why he's here, but he came searching for me, but he addressed me as Campbell." "Perhaps he knew your father." "That's what I thought." Mary and Roger went to greet the man. "Dr. Wilson, this is my husband Roger. Nice to meet you." The couple took a seat opposite to him as Roger asked, "So what brings you here, doctor, at this time and in this weather?" Dr. Wilson looked at Mary. "I'm here on behalf of your uncle, Hugh Campbell." A look of displeasure instantly appeared on her face before she looked away in rage. "Then you can leave my house, doctor. If I knew, I wouldn't have let you enter." Dr. Wilson slowly nodded. "I understand why you might be upset, but please hear me out." "No, I don't need to hear anything. You can leave, right now." Mary was about to get up when Roger held her back. "Mary, he has come all the way here in this weather. Let's see what he has to say." "Roger, you know why." "Mary, are we going to let out a guest in the storm? There isn't even any transport around here. How will he travel anywhere like this?" Mary let out a sigh listening to her husband and sat back down. Roger then finally asked, "Doctor, what brings you here?" "I'm from the town of Birdford. I practice medicine there, and I have my own chamber. It all started about a week ago. It was a cold, snowy evening, just like today." Dr. Harold Wilson was a very well-known and respected doctor in the small town of Birdford. The townspeople were all quite fond of him and knew him as an honest and kind man, as he was always helping out others. Hence, many people came to his chamber and sometimes visited him at his home. It was a week ago. In the snow and wind, Dr. Wilson was returning home from his evening walk. As he reached his gate, he saw a man standing there, waiting and looking in. Upon seeing Dr. Wilson, he hurried to speak with him. "Dr. Wilson, I've come from the Campbell mansion. Mr. Hugh Campbell is awfully ill and would like you to come visit him urgently." "You have come all the way from the mansion of Hugh Campbell?" "Yes, doctor. He has sent me to you. It's a request that you please visit him. But in this weather..." "Doctor, he is very unwell." Dr. Wilson looked at the skies as he let out a misty breath. "All right, but how do you plan to return in this weather?" "I'm not going to return to the mansion tonight. I have some work at the marketplace." With that, the man left, and Dr. Wilson went inside and called his housekeeper. "Thomas, get the horse carriage ready. We have to go to the Campbell mansion." "But sir, the Campbell mansion is quite far from here, and it has already begun snowing. It seems like the weather will only get worse." "Thomas, a man is in pain and is waiting for us, hoping that we will relieve him from his pain. We must go." "Yes, sir." "Feed the horse properly and put the heavy saddle blanket on him. We should head out as soon as possible." "Yes, sir." The winds had picked up severely by the time Dr. Wilson and Thomas left the house. And along the way, the weather did only worsen. The grounds were covered in a thick layer of snow, which had slowed the horse down significantly. However, they managed to reach near the Campbell mansion in about an hour's journey. But it was as they reached just a distance from the mansion, suddenly the carriage halted. Concerned as to what happened, Dr. Wilson got down. "What is the matter, Thomas?" "The horse suddenly stopped, sir. I can't get him to move. It seems like he's scared of something." "Did you not feed the horse properly before setting off?" "Yes, sir, I did." Dr. Wilson looked out down the road that led through the woods ahead. The snow made it difficult to see, but he could vaguely make out the Campbell mansion through the slight moonlight that shone through the clouds every now and then. "I can see the mansion from here. I'll walk the rest of the way. Calm the horse down and come meet me there." "Yes, sir." In the heavy storm, Dr. Wilson grabbed onto his briefcase and pushed against the winds as he walked off. It took about half an hour till he reached the main gates of the mansion. However, he could see no security guards or any other servants there. The gate was unlocked. So Dr. Wilson entered and walked towards the mansion. As he was about to knock on the door, he realized it was left ajar. Strange. He slowly creaked the door open. It was tremendously dark inside. He could barely see anything. "Is anyone home?" His voice echoed down the hall. There was no reply. Dr. Wilson took out a match from his pocket and lit it, barely able to make out a staircase ahead of him. "Mr. Campbell, are you here?" he said, walking forward, when he suddenly heard a voice from the upper floor. "Dr. Harold Wilson, I'm sorry I can't come down. The sickness has taken a heavy toll on me. I sent my servant to deliver my message to you. He has probably gone to the market after meeting you, and I don't have any other servants at the mansion. Would you please come upstairs?" Hearing Mr. Hugh's call, Dr. Wilson slowly walked up the dark stairs and with much difficulty discovered the room open at the end of the hall. As he made his way inside, he heard Mr. Hugh again. "Doctor, there was a candle on the desk by the window." Dr. Wilson could only see as much as the light from the window allowed. To the far corner, the man lay on his bed. Slowly stepping towards the window, Dr. Wilson found a thin candlestick on the table and lit it. But even then, it barely helped to light up the room. "Please have a seat," Mr. Hugh said. Mr. Campbell, how are you living all alone in this mansion? Doctor, this is why I have called for you. Maybe I won't survive, and if anything happens to me, I have a request. What is it? In the desk drawer beside you, there is a will. If anything happens to me, please hand it over to my niece, Mary Campbell, so she can inherit all my property. You're leaving all your property to your niece? What about your wife and children? Yes, doctor. For once, I wanted to do something right in my life. I'm a sinner, and I want to redeem my sin. What sin? I was raised in a very wealthy household with my father and my elder brother William. Growing up, I had always been jealous of my brother, as my father often preferred him over me. At the time of my father's death, my brother wasn't present. He was out of the country. But on his deathbed, my father distributed all his property between my brother and I equally. Unfortunately, William passed away before he could return to England, and he couldn't take control of his portion of the wealth. He was a married man and had 2 children, Mary and James. Soon after his demise, his wife Anne brought their children to England and visited me. His wife asked for William's share of inheritance, but I lied to her. I told her our father had left everything to me. But how could that be? How could Mr. Campbell do something like this? What about his grandchildren? You see, my brother William is dead. How do I know that these children of yours are his children? What? How can you say that? That day, I humiliated her in front of her children and sent them away. After William's demise, they had no one, and Anne was struggling to raise their children, and they ended up leading a very difficult life. It was during that time that my brother's only son, James, fell ill and passed away in sickness. When I received the news, deep down inside, I felt glad. I had no worries, for now there was no one who might make a claim over my property. And while Anne and Mary were struggling in their lives, I was enjoying my life with my wife and children. But soon I realized my happiness was no more than a delusion. My wife had been unfaithful to me, and I couldn't be sure if my children were indeed my children at all. And soon, I became a mockery in my own town. That's when I divorced my wife, and she married her lover. And my children, they became distant from me. So I left the city and moved to this small mountain town to live the rest of my life in isolation. I realized whatever happened to me was the divine punishment for what I did to the family of my own brother. And to redeem myself, I'm leaving everything to my niece, hoping she would forgive me for what I have done. As long as I lived, I was in hell. I don't want to burn in hell, even after my death. Listening to Mr. Hugh, Dr. Wilson said, "Mr. Hugh, you have done something awful, but you have also been through a lot. Let's not be negative. Let me do your checkup. Perhaps you will recover soon, and you can give this to your niece yourself." With that, Dr. Wilson picked up the candle and walked towards Mr. Hugh. But as the darkness lit up, and Dr. Wilson neared his bed, he was startled by what he saw. Dr. Wilson stared at a skeleton laying on the bed in place of Mr. Hugh. Dropping the candle in fright, he stumbled back in the utter darkness. What had he just seen? Gathering his composure, Dr. Wilson tried to think straight. Was this all a dream? Or a delusion? He rushed to the desk lit another candle. Opening the drawer, he picked up the pieces of paper. The will of Hugh Campbell. In his horror, Dr. Wilson grabbed all his things and ran out of the mansion, where he heard his horse neighing by the gate. As Thomas struggled to get hold of the horse, Dr. Wilson hurried towards them. "Thomas, do you know the man who came to the house this evening?" "Yes, but he's not a man of good reputation." "Do you know where he lives?" "Yes, sir." It was late that night. Dr. Wilson arrived to the house of the man who had brought him news of Hugh Campbell. Upon opening the door, the man looked distraught seeing him. "May we speak?" "When did you last see Mr. Hugh Campbell?" "It was a few nights ago. I knew he lived alone, and the Campbell mansion had no servants. It had been practically deserted for the longest time. I had gone there to steal, but when I went inside, I heard a voice. It was his voice. Unless you want to be in prison, go and send my word to Dr. Harold Wilson and call him to the mansion, and that vase will be yours." After speaking with the man, Dr. Wilson realized what he had experienced was no delusion. It had been real. So, I spoke to his spirit. It was the soul of Mr. Hugh Campbell. Dr. Wilson looked at Mary. "Since then, I've been searching for you. I found out your mother passed away and you got married and were settled here in Leslie." Dr. Wilson took out the will of Hugh Campbell and handed it to Mary. "Your uncle has left everything to you. He lived a miserable life, and even after his death, he couldn't have peace for what he did to your family. It was his spirit that was seeking redemption."
Click on the subscribe button and check out more awesome videos on our channel. And don't forget to press the bell icon because you know it's interesting.